Okay, so tonight I'm responding to the claim made by Ariana Venegas that medical marijuana has benefits as a treatment for children with chronic diseases and disorders. She supported her claim with 3 secondary claims. First, that medical marijuana has benefits for children with cancer. Second, that medical marijuana helps children with epilepsy. And third, medical marijuana is also effective for children with autism. My response to that claim is that there is not enough data to determine a benefit. So the first claim was that medical marijuana has benefits for children with cancer because it reduces the effects of chemotherapy in children. No significant evidence was cited for that, so I counter it with findings from the American Cancer Society that says that they found that while certain marijuana derivatives do help improve food intake and prevent weight loss in patients with HIV, the studies with cancer patients, though, it wasn't any better than a placebo or any other available drug that is legal. As for pain, it did show promise for people that have cancer pain that is unrelieved by strong pain medicines, but it hasn't been found to be helpful in every study. My opponent claims that it helps kill cancer cells. She cites a Stanford study done with mice. Dr. Handlin of the Department of Medicine, Division of Adolescents at the Boston's Children's Hospital says that many of the advocates cite scientific literature regarding the benefits of cannabis for the treatment of pediatric behavioral conditions, but often that data is cited from animal model-based research that does not yet have translations to humans. More on that in a moment. I do counter that with the American Cancer Society, who tells us that there have been early clinical trials of cannabinoids in treating cancer in humans, but the studies so far do not show that they help control or cure the disease. The second claim is that medical marijuana helps children with epilepsy by reducing the amount of seizures. The study my opponent shared with us and cited had a sampling size that was much too small. It was only 214 participants, and additionally, the group was a combination of adults and children, and they ranging in ages from 2 to 26, and that's quite a big range. Developmentally, a 2-year-old is vastly different than a 26-year-old. And in the same study, the advocate left out that 52 of those participants reported serious side effects, and the most common serious possible side effect was status epilepticus, which is when a person has sustained or repeated seizures. And sustained seizures of that type can actually be fatal. In support of the reduction of seizures, she also cited that the FDA has given permission for compassionate use. This is not entirely accurate. The FDA only granted permission to some epilepsy centers and for a limited number of patients at each center, and it did not report how many of that limited number was actually children. She also, the advocate next gave an example of a family friend, and although it may have helped her family friend have a reduction in seizures, this is a personal account and it's not an official study. The long-term effects cannot be determined, so I question the lack of data on that one. Dr. Patel of the Epilepsy Foundation states that conducting studies can be difficult for researchers because they have limited access to marijuana due to the federal regulations. It is illegal federally, and even more limited access to cannabis oil. More substantially, the American Academy of Pediatrics has not endorsed cannabis and cannabinoid use for children because of concerns about brain development. The third and final claim is that medical marijuana is also effective for children with autism because it alters signaling in the nervous system. This is the mice study that I was talking about earlier. It was conducted by Stanford University in 2013, and while they did find that some of the mice that had that specific and rare gene mutation did show altered endocannabinoid signaling, but what happened was that people, online media reporters, took that and ran with it. Such supporters were an online media place called the High Times, and they reported it as evidence and made the leap that cannabis could be used to treat autism. So I challenged the credibility on that one. The advocate next cited a study of a 6-year-old autistic boy who seemed to show improvements. However, this was a single case study, and it was uncontrolled and unblinded. There was another additional case in that same article that was done with a adult male. But Dr. Hadland says, but neither of these studies provided sufficient high-quality data to suggest that cannabis should be recommended for a treatment of autism. So, given the scarcity of the data, the limited number of cases, and the small sampling sizes in the studies, cannabis cannot be safely recommended for the treatment of developmental disorders and chronic diseases. It's important that we recognize that the long-term effects and consequences of regular use, especially in children whose brains are still yet developing.
All right, Anna, the only thing that I think needed a little bit of work is a little bit less reading, but you do have a lot of information. I understand why you're looking down quite a bit. Other than that, I thought it was really solid. It's clearly organized on each of the individual points. You were very specific about criticizing information that the advocate used for its limitations, offering counter evidence to support your conclusion, sometimes explaining a potential downfall or problem that was left out by the advocate as to why this is not a particularly good piece of information. And one of the things that, maybe one other thing that you could do at the end of the argument was maybe contrast the evidence that's being used. I mean, your sources include the American Cancer Society, the American Pediatric Association, a whole bunch of other groups, and theirs consists of, like you said, an online group from High Times that are running with this information that is a little bit premature. And you just say to people, look, nobody is denying that there is potential here, but the advocate is making it sound like this is a done deal, and it is far from a done deal, and here is all the proof on that kind of thing. But like I said, that's a minor quibble. I thought it was easy to follow. The evidence was very clear. You explained the reservations that you had about the advocate's evidence very clearly as well. I thought the interjection of occasional problems, like for example on the epilepsy thing, that a substantial number of the patients in the study that got left out of the advocate's argument suffered from this disabling and potentially life-threatening side effect that certainly seems like it would raise warning signals about using this in the way that the advocate is talking about it being utilized. And I like that the mice study was, largely suggest, look, we're just starting on this process, and making the inferential leap from mice is a little bit tough at this particular point. So, good job. Thank you.